And when people say, oh, but I just want to do a job and go home and watch Netflix, and that's fine, that's entirely their decision. But if you think of, if I always tell them, if think of it in, if it was their money, would they hire someone who just wanted to do the bare minimum? Would you hire someone who wanted to do a really good job and go above and beyond and was passionate about it as if it was their own project?
What's going on, YouTube? I got these headphones on because 21 Savage just dropped his new album on Spotify, and that's what I'm listening to. But you can't hear it, otherwise I'll get demonetized. Anyways, today's video, we're looking at how Eddie Jowd hires developers. If you don't know who he is, I made a video with him before about how to get started in open source. He's actually the top 500 open source contributors in the whole world. He's in the top 10 contributors open source for Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and other huge companies like that. He's been doing this for 15 years. He has his own startup company and he freelances for clients. So this guy really knows what he's doing. So I was like, you know what? It'd be good to see how you hire, see your insights of what you look for. I mean, go check out this guy's GitHub. He's got 2,200 commits within the last year. He's also got a YouTube channel, so you can go check that out. He films his hackathons, his open source events, everything that he goes to and attends. So I'll put those links in the description below. His GitHub looking like a fresh tile shower floor. Pushing close to like 20 minutes, but it's just filled with straight gems. I learned a whole lot, and he dropped some gems about how to get your foot in the door, you know, how to turn the lack of experience into a pro and then turn that into even more money, kind of like actionable gems. Like, so if you don't, I asked him, I was like, what do you think about developers applying to jobs that they're not qualified for? He's like, oh, if you could talk about architecture with other people and like different design patterns, and you can mention that and show that you know the concepts transfer from language to language, then do that. Like, just, he's got some good gems in here. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Link for the Discord down below. He's Eddie Jowd on the Discord if you want to come talk to him. Again, his GitHub and everything down there too. Maybe on your way out, leave a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss another video. Hope you guys enjoy it. I certainly did. Thanks, Eddie, for doing the interview, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Give me like the overview of what you hire on when you're hiring people for your personal startup team and for other freelance clients that you work with. Like what are the top things that you look for? You can kind of give an overview, and I have some questions later.
The hiring process is actually always quite painful. I think it starts off quite exciting and then it very quickly becomes quite painful because you get people who exaggerate on their CV, which is why I'm not a big fan of CV and LinkedIn. I'm more of a big fan of kind of GitHub and actually seeing people's work. So what I look for is I usually contact my network and say, you know, I'm looking for this sort of skill set, roughly speaking. I don't want to be too specific. And do you know anyone? And then that way it's more of a recommendation. You can trust that person more. And then failing that, I'll have to go to recruiters and get them to send me CVs. And when I look at a CV, the first thing I do is look for a GitHub account so I can go have a look. And the work on their GitHub account doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not looking for their latest and greatest work. I'm more looking for, do they understand the process of, you know, creating good commit messages, pull requests, those sorts of basic things that a lot of the time we all take for granted, but some people don't do it. If I see a project that has commits, as it says WIP, like work in progress, then that adds no value to that commit. It's kind of pointless. Then I look at code, and if you look at my code from a month ago, I think it's terrible now. So I'm not looking for their perfect code. It could be even projects they're just playing with it's some new tech or learning, and that's all fine. I just want to see that how their thought process is. And also I like to look back maybe 3 months or 6 months and see that they've improved. One of the test situations that I like to do, which I'll come into more detail later on, is I'll look at an existing kind of project they've done on GitHub and I'll take a small kind of piece of it and ask them to build something very similar. And I want to see if they build it better than they did a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. If they build it exactly the same, then they've learned nothing new. And I also do ask them the question, if you look at your code from 6 months ago, do you think it's good or bad? And I also sometimes like to bring up some of their code and say, what improvements would you make to this? If that all looks good, I look at their past work experience on their CV, how long they've been at their previous places. So if they're freelance, contract, or permanent, it does vary slightly in what I look for. But if they were permanent, coming for a permanent role, I would look to see on average if they've been kind of 2 years at a place. If they're a junior and haven't got much experience, again, it's more just to have a chat with them and see kind of how reliable they are. What they've been doing in their own time is also really important. There's another thing I really like to look at. So if someone's been doing a YouTube channel or blogs on tutorials or answering stuff on Stack Overflow, whatever kind of floats their boat. I interviewed one person fairly recently, and they didn't want to do web dev in their own time, but they enjoyed controlling robots with code and using a library called JavaScript called Johnny 5. And she talked me through that, and I was like, you know what, that's fine, because you can see that they're still learning from a slightly different angle, but that adds value. And I think that what they've learned in debugging, in understanding tech, can be applied to the day job as well. So it's about learning. It doesn't have to be on their day job. It can be stuff that's kind of around the outsides of kind of tech, because tech's a big space.
So I get this question in stream all the time. Do you think that algorithms and data structures are totally necessary for our field, what we do in the interview process, even though on the job you might not be doing those directly?
I don't think they are important. I think we don't really do that in our day job. I think it's important to understand how people think. So it's good to kind of give a challenge to that person, but to do kind of, I don't know, sort like bubble sort, all that sorting sort of stuff and other things, it's not really done. We use the database to sort things for us. We don't actually sort those manually, unless you're doing something like C++, but it's unlikely. In our world, not really. So no, I don't think that's important, but I think some old-fashioned places are still doing those, and I think that they lose a lot of good candidates because of that. One of the tests that I like to do, I mentioned before, find someone existing what they've done on GitHub and get them to kind of reproduce a small part of it. Or another one I like is I'll actually get a story that we've got coming up in the next sprint for our project, and I'll pair with the person on it. So they'll have the keyboard, they'll code. If they're happy to, come to the worst, if they're quite nervous, I'm happy to sit on the keyboard. And then they can instruct me what to do. They don't have to know all the detailed syntax. It's more about the thinking. So when I was interviewing someone for a JavaScript role, they actually had PHP experience. So they weren't 100% confident on the syntax. And that can easily be learned. So I wasn't worried about that. So that's fine. I really like your attitude. I really like the way you think. I just want to see how you think a bit more when solving a problem. So why don't I sit on the keyboard and I'll code it, but you tell me where to put, what the condition is, where the loops are, how you would structure the classes and the functions and so forth. So don't worry about the detail. I want to see how they think. So we're able to achieve, in that 30 minutes, we're able to achieve quite a lot. And it's always about contributing to the team and doing something that is architected well, so it's split out. So if someone says, oh, I've written, this class or this function, and I could tidy up that function a bit, but as long as you've got a test for it, and as long as the input and output stay the same, you can refactor that later on. It's the structure of how functions are chained or classes are chained and so forth is the important part, because to restructure that later on, it has more of a knock-on effect to other areas.
This is a super popular question. What do you think about juniors trying to find remote jobs? Because I know you hire remote, and I know you work remote. You're kind of proponent of that. Does that affect your decision a lot more when you're hiring?
No, so for me, remote is about the right person, the right attitude. If they're a junior, someone I hired recently, it was their first coding job, so they were a junior, and the remote, was no issue at all, and even flexible time. So I don't even expect people to do the 9 to 5 or an hour each way. They kind of work when they want to, and I'm looking for quality, not quantity. So I know a lot of companies, especially old-fashioned ones, do get a bit nervous. But with Slack and with modern tech and screen sharing and all this sorts of stuff and good internet connection, I don't think we need to physically be in the same location. And nothing worse than wasting time commuting. And I think if you're looking for someone around your offices, whatever it is, 30 miles around your offices, you're limiting the pool of people, the talent pool. And yeah, if they're junior, no, they need to have the right attitude. So there are some seniors I wouldn't hire remotely. So I think the level, from my point of view, doesn't have an effect on the remote working. But again, the old-fashioned company, they get a bit nervous. I don't know why. Probably because the senior people are in too many meetings, so they think if the junior people need help, they won't answer back won't reply in a adequate time on Slack. But then I think they've got another problem, which is they've got too many meetings.
What is the key thing that someone can do to make you look at them? Because like you said before, like resumes are great, but people can exaggerate. What gets you to open that message and message that person back then?
I want to see actual proof of their work, and let me explain that, because that sounds quite, I think, harsh and strict, which is actually not. proof of they love what they're doing and they will add value to the project and team. And that could be anywhere around tech. So yes, they might be wanting to do coding during their kind of day job, but if they do tutorials on blog posts or they vlog tech events they go to, or they do YouTube videos around the tech space, it doesn't have to be YouTube videos around coding, they do it about something else, then I think that all adds value. And you could also see how we can incorporate those skills to help the project. So anything that someone does above and beyond, and people say, oh, but it's not fair, what I do in my own time is my business, and it is. I'm not dictating what people should do, but they should do something that pushes their skills and their learn, not necessarily around coding. If it's around coding, then great, but it doesn't have to be. So if someone's passionate about something, photography, videography, anything else, include that, because if you're passionate about photography and videography, you've got to think about so many other things. But then when they code in their day job, they won't just think about the coding and throw it over the fence. They'll think, right, there's a user involved. I've got to think about how will the user, is the user experience good? They'll think a bit. I'm not expecting them to be a user experience expert, but at least they'll have an appreciation for the other skills. So again, it all adds value around that. So yeah, passionate people who just want to improve themselves.
When you say include that, do you mean just on the cover letter, or like find a way? A little bit ambiguous.
Yeah, so actually, I'm glad you said that. I didn't clarify that. So yeah, in the cover letter, keep it to one paragraph. Say I'm a really passionate coder. I'm doing this. I'm learning this. But in addition to that, I also do this. X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is. I think just keep it to one paragraph, short and sweet, and in that paragraph include why you stand out, and then that will be the next step for someone to kind of look at the CV. And then hopefully on the CV, they've got links to videos, or if you talk at conferences, or if you go to hackathons, or if you've got projects on GitHub, whatever it is, then they can see that. And at the end, you can say, if you want more information, I can send you more information. So don't kind of, close it off, but, or even in the subsections, these are my 2 links to my GitHub projects that I contribute to. If you want more, I can send you more, for example. And if you do videos or conferences or talks or blog posts, don't include 20 blog posts. Just include your best 2, your favorite 2, and say there are more available if you want. And therefore they can, I do want to see more. But they'll probably find it online anyway.
Oh, what is your thoughts on like 8 hours in a chair versus 8 hours of productivity? I believe that like that doesn't correlate. You get maybe 5 good hours, maybe, and then that's it. I'm just gonna be sitting there. What do you think?
I think it swings and roundabouts. So, as I say to my employees in the startup, if you're not having a productive day and your family are in the room next door and you've got all the family around, they popped in and you're thinking about that and you're not focusing, just close your laptop, turn off your computer, go and chill. And because if you're not focusing, you're not giving 80, 90, 100%, then there's no point. You're not going to satisfy your work, and you're not going to satisfy the family. Just go chill with the family. If it's sunny outside and you want to go sunbathe for a couple of hours, go do that. Other days, you'll be in the zone and you'll be like, you know what, I'm doing really well, I want to work a bit more of this, and you probably do a couple more hours. I think it all swings in roundabouts. I think the 9 to 5, 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, sitting in a chair is 1990s. It's not like that anymore. It's about quality of work. A lot of places I have worked, okay, not so recently, but places I have worked, they do want bums on seats in 9 to 5, and I think that is ridiculous. I'm trying to educate them to say that's not important. Or if you're having a bad day, it's 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I'm having a bad day, look, I'm not going anywhere, just call it a day. And they don't believe in that. Because I'm down in the trenches doing the work as well, rather than middle management just looks around and looks at all these kind of people and go, oh, they're at the desks and they're warming their seats. They don't realize they're on Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is, and they're not giving quality, and then they're not having that work-life balance. Trying to educate them that it is important about quality of work. And it's a slow process, and unfortunately, it's the managers who manage, they don't do anything, and their job is to kind of crack the whip, and when their boss comes down, they want to see lots of people with bums on seats. Yeah, they it sounds really harsh, and you might want to cut this out, but they're not good enough to do the job, and they're not good enough to make important decisions. They just manage people. That's all they do.
This is amazing.
Well, it's true, right? I've just seen it, and it's not like I've seen it in one place. I've seen it year in, year out for 15 years. Okay, at the beginning of my career, I didn't have much to gauge it with, but now, after working at so many places, and all across the board, like I said, from all across the board from different places, I've seen that middle management is all the same. It's people who couldn't cut it, but they're not important enough to make any more important decisions. And some of the stuff they come up with in meetings, when they say, "Oh, we want to change this," I say, "Well, you have to think of the knock-on effect it's going to affect this area and this area." Kid you not, this is what some people have said. "Oh, that's just one line of CSS." Yeah, it is, but it's going to break everything else, and you've got to think more about it. They don't think of that bigger picture, or they just say, "Well, if that test is failing, let's just delete all the tests." Yeah, that's a great idea. Where else has it broken it then in the future? And they just don't understand that. And they think rather than writing automated tests, they'll rather throw it over a fence to 30 manual testers who every time you make a change will test the entire application. And it's just very old fashioned. And unfortunately, that middle management area was quite bad. Some of the better places I have worked don't have that middle management.
How much do you think I need to know to get like a job? Just like bare minimum technology. What would you look for? Because you do a lot. So like, what do you think the bare minimum tech is to get a web developer job?
It's more about what can they contribute. So the bare minimum might be different for different people. So you might have person A, and they might be really good at, say, I don't know, HTML and CSS, but they don't really know JavaScript. But if I need that skill because the rest of us aren't very good at it or not so interested in it, then that's good enough. So it's all about contribution, how much they can contribute. So I think you should definitely sell what your main skill is. So even if someone's only been doing something for like a month, say, like, I've been doing HTML and CSS for a month and I know a bit of Bootstrap, and sell that. So that's what I know, that's what I'm passionate about, that's what I'm pushing forward to learn more, but also say what you want to learn more. So I do want to get more experience in JavaScript or PHP or whatever it is. And if you can highlight not just the language, maybe some frameworks and some benefits why, and if you can complement your existing skill. So again, if we use the HTML CSS example, if someone says I'm awesome at HTML CSS and Bootstrap, then I've read the documentation on Bootstrap, I know it really well, I keep up to date with the versions, so I know there's new features coming out that I'm aware of, so we won't have to build it ourselves. I want to get more involved in JavaScript so I can complement my existing skills and so on. That's just such a huge benefit.
What do you think about people applying to jobs that they're not specifically qualified for with their current skill set?
If you know a language quite well, and then you want to apply to another language, do it. Don't let that stop you, because the principles are the same. You're going to have conditions, you're going to have loops, you're going to have functions, you're going to have classes. A lot of people don't focus on design patterns. I think that's a bit of a lost art. You don't have to learn all of them. I mean, there are loads. There are probably the main 30 that are the most popular ones, and probably 10 that people use on a daily basis. But even that 10, you don't need to learn them inside out. It's about being aware of them and knowing where to look. So if someone has one language, I would say look at design patterns and learn, I don't know, one a week, one a month, and in no time at all you'll have 10, and try and learn the titles and the abstracts of the others. Don't go into too much detail, just know when to use them. And that's just a great conversational piece. So if I'm interviewing for one language and they've got a different one, I'll say, okay, brilliant. So if you wanted different data input sources, how would you architect that? And as soon as they say, oh, I'll use the adapter pattern, I'm like, brilliant. Okay, the language is not important. This person has thought outside the language a bit more.
I was going to ask about money, like how should juniors negotiate money, but it's going to be different because you're in the UK. But I'm sure there's like got to be something there.
Same way, I've worked for companies in Germany, and it's the same as the UK. Okay, yes, it's Europe, but I think in the States it's going to be very similar. I would try and look at the market rate for the level you're at and be kind of honest with yourself. I've seen people come in and go, hey, I've got like 2 months, but I want like 120K. It's like, going to be realistic, and straight away you put the other person on the kind of, I don't know, on the defensive, on the back foot. And I think you've got to be realistic and try and back it up and say, look, I think I'm worth this much and I can contribute this to the project and the team. And if they come back and say, oh, but you're a junior, you've only been doing it a few months, you're going to be, we're going to be teaching you a lot. You can say, yeah, but turn it into a positive. Try and turn everything into a positive. You can say something like, yes, but that's actually a positive, because I don't know your project. I can download your project. I can use your project as a new user. I could try and go through your technical documentation to make sure that I can get the project up and running. I can deploy it. And if the documentation doesn't make sense, or you've made some assumptions in the middle, which happens 99% of the time, that a senior dev or someone who knows the project well has written do A, B, C, they've missed out a step in the middle because it's just an obvious step to them. So I would turn a negative into a positive.